Thank you, Patrick. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's City Council workshop. I'm going to ask if you would please silence your cell phones. And workshop is a time for council to receive presentations and to discuss any upcoming agenda items that we may be voting on, and also to do some executive session items. We do not vote in workshop, we just discuss things. But we appreciate you all being here today. We have several reports that we will be getting. The first one is our workforce housing update, and that will be with Brian Tucker, Kevin Waits, and Megan Michael.
Good morning. I will introduce this at this point. We have been working with Habitat on workforce housing issues really since even before I got here, and we've been steady at it since I've gotten here. Habitat has played a major role in that transition from Jason. I see, there's Jason. So Jason helped us a number of years ago with the housing needs assessment. Under Jason's leadership at Habitat, we developed the strategic plan. Megan took over at that point and helped us begin to implement the strategic plan. A couple of the major pieces of the strategic plan were to establish a land trust, and one was also to engage a group called Community Works. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. Megan and Lawrence are here today to talk specifically about the Community Land Trust and how that is going to work and where we are in the process there and why it matters. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lawrence and Megan, and then I'll come back up if need be.
All right. Good morning.
Boy.
Good morning.
So I'm really excited to be here with you today. I'd really like to start with sharing a bit of a personal anecdote, but it's relevant, I promise. In 2018, I was living downtown, did not yet work for Habitat, and was investing and redignifying in spaces and homes in a 5-block radius from where I lived. My husband and I have found ourselves on this journey of taking literally the words of Jesus when he said, "Love your neighbor as yourself." And in that process, we became aware of the challenges of our neighborhood. We also became aware of the beauty of what it's like to live awake to the lives of the people who live in closest proximity to you. And we came up with this, in this life, we came up with this vision of a place, a neighborhood of choice. A neighborhood with spaces that were marketable, decent, attractive, to not only young professionals, but people, no matter where they fall and what category on your payroll, they would have an attainable way to find themselves with a home that is decent, affordable, and full of opportunity in this neighborhood. And so with this vision, around the street, or down the street from where I lived, a row of 11 townhomes went up for sale. And so I hit my spreadsheets, and I stayed up late, and I did my research, and I came across this model called a community land trust model, and stayed up really late one night, made a pitch deck, and I sent it to every stakeholder that I could think of in Horry County. And the reason that I did this was because in researching this community land trust model, I came to truly believe that this concept has proven in places to bring us to that vision. It makes that vision possible of a place, no matter what you earn, if you are hardworking and have good values, you have the opportunity to attain a decent place to live. And I sent it to everyone that I could, and the executive director of Habitat for Humanity of Horry County got back to me. She gave me a phone call, and she said, "Would you like to go to coffee?" I said, "Absolutely." And in this coffee meeting, she said, "The city of Myrtle Beach is putting together this thing called the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee, and I'd really like to take it to them." I said, "Take it away." And with that, in 2018, God pulled up a chair for me to take a seat and watch as this personal vision I realized was a shared vision. Many people here in this room, among many people in our county. And over the last 7 years, we have watched people come together to do what I only dreamed for one neighborhood, we can do for neighborhoods that are already existing and not even yet existing across the entire county. And so that's why I'm eager to share with you our progress today. I really believe in this thing, and it's a special day for me to be able to share this with you. Who's got the slides? Is it me? Do I have the slides?
Yes.
Okay, so a brief history of where we are. In 2021, we did the Workforce Housing Needs Assessment with the Advisory Committee in Myrtle Beach. And then in 2022, formed this strategic plan, which included, as Brian said, the Community Land Trust creation, as well as the Housing Trust Fund creation. And in 2023, something really interesting happened. Major employers started to get together with the EDC and say, workforce housing is one of our biggest recruitment and retention issues for major employers in the county. And so with that, the County Housing Committee was convened, and we started to bring a lot more people into this conversation. In 2024, CCAR commissioned a study that found support for a community land trust model being really viable here. And so we retained a consultant to advise us on the startup process and started educating stakeholders on what it would be like to roll this out. And so at the end of 2024, we formed the Community Land Trust, the Horry County Community Land Trust Board. We drafted the articles, the bylaws, the budget, and the operational plan. And just last month, we held our initial board meeting to approve all of the above, and that's what we're going to share with you today. And so it is my, oh, not yet. I was going to introduce you just now, but not yet. I have one more slide. So what we came up with here with the purpose of the Horry County Community Land Trust is threefold. To acquire and hold land for the purpose of permanent affordability. And I'll do a refresher here in a moment on what this community land trust model looks like. To provide housing ownership and rental program opportunities for Horry County's workforce facing a lack of access in the real estate market. And then third, to provide decent housing that is affordable to low to moderate income persons. It is drafted specifically in this order. We had a long discussion in our initial board meeting about what really the intention is for the land trust. We believe that first and foremost, the land trust is going to fill the gap between where funding for affordable housing, and calls it ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. That is who we want to first and foremost serve with the trust. It's your typical 80% to 120% of the area median income, your folks who don't qualify for all of the government subsidies or don't qualify for a traditional program like Habitats, but still are unable to attain a house on the market. And then also, we believe that the trust has the capacity to serve the entire spectrum. So that includes folks who do make a low to moderate income, and that we can provide that community of choice, that neighborhood of choice where all people have access. Okay, so a quick refresher on the Community Land Trust. You see a picture here that actually Jason Green made. I'm glad he's here today to take a look at it, that I'm still using. And this really shows in a picture what the land trust could look like. So if you think of this as a typical subdivision, the land trust could have a mix of lots within that subdivision. Not every lot, but some lots, a small portion of lots in a new subdivision that would be a mixture of set aside for low to moderate income families, as well as families who are making that 80 to 120% AMI. And what happens is the trust acquires that land and then puts that out for builders to bid on building on those on those parcels. And then what we do in the trust is we acquire the subsidy, we offer the financial literacy, and we create the pathway for the homeowner to access that home attainably. They'd purchase that home at an appraised price with subsidy, and then that land is actually leased from the trust to the homeowner who owns that home. And in that lease, there's something called a resale formula That resale formula takes the house out of the volatility of the market and puts it on a path of basically equity increase over time, where the value of the home is growing equal to the value of wages as at that same rate. And so what we're doing, that if a teacher buys a home 1 year and decides to sell it 10 years later, in theory, that teacher could sell it to someone who's in their same position, if that makes sense. And then, like I said, the trust retains this land for permanent affordability. So the homeowner agrees that they are going to sell to another qualified buyer. If the trust does its job, we've got a pipeline of those folks, and it's never a question of, can I find that person? But that homeowner gets to walk away with equity to go participate in the open market. Okay, and so now it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the president of the board of directors of the Horry County Community Land Trust, Lawrence Bolches. And I have so much in our short time working together enjoyed working with Lawrence. And I really believe that we've got a wonderful roster of board members. And I'm so grateful that Lawrence was willing to take on the mantle of being the first, which is not an easy choice to do. So thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Megan. Good morning.
Good morning.
As Megan said, I'm Lawrence Bolches, the president and CEO of Coastal Carolina National Bank here in Myrtle Beach, a locally headquartered bank here in Myrtle Beach. And this is really an important day for us, and I'm excited to be involved with Megan. I've known Megan for about 60 days, and after watching her and getting to know her, she's got the passion, right? And this is something that we've all talked about in this community. I've been here more than 32 years now, so it's a very important endeavor, and we're really excited to talk to you about the endeavor and about the board we put together to kind of run this for the stakeholders here in Myrtle Beach and Horry County. So the key factor that we're talking about, go to the next slide. I could do that, I guess, huh, Megan? Let's see. Excellent. There's 3 different sectors that make up the board: public representation, workforce representation, and the private sector. And you can see in the public representation, Dennis DeSabato with Horry County Council, Barry Spivey, Horry County Administrator, Brian Tucker to my left, John Rogers with the City of Conway, Mary Anderson with the Horry County School District. Workforce representation, Blakely Roof with United Way of Horry County, Beth Tranter from Horry County Community Development, Etta Carter from Adult Ed, and Ryan Grace with the Boys and Girls Club. Private sector representation, Bruce Bailey with Tidelands Health, Sandy Davis with the EDC, Madison Cooper with CCAR, and myself with the bank. So we're excited to set it up where the representation really matters, not just private sector getting involved, but really everybody who's on the ground blocking and tackling every day involved in this space. As Megan just alluded to, somehow I was elected president of this organization. I'm excited about that. Luckily, Brian Tucker will be the vice president, Blakely the secretary, and Beth Tranter the treasurer. So again, all sectors of the organization support our organization really is the startup operations. Hopefully over time the CLT will be able to be its own entity and break away. I don't want to say break away from Habitat, but in the meantime, Habitat's going to provide all those operational services as we grow administratively over the next few years. So we're excited about that. And if we, this is the timeline that Megan and the group have set up, and if everything goes as planned, this is kind of gives you an idea of how we'll be working on this important initiative for the next number of years. But at this point, that concludes my comments. And Megan, I'll call you back up to answer any questions that council may have.
Any questions?
Open it up to council.
Here comes the vice president.
Well, I'll say, Megan, first of all, thank you for your passionate opening. I think 3 of us, I think Greg and Mike Chestnut and I were able, when we were at a National League of Cities meeting, we were able to actually visit some of these communities. And you are right, when people live together, the beauty that comes out of that. And this is something we learned about, I learned about, I think Greg, you did too, at one of these meetings. I think it was in San Antonio. So I'm so happy that we're at this point where it's actually happening.
That's a great way to put it. You know, I give you all a lot of credit over the years. I think Megan will attest. I think Jason will attest. You know, there for a number of years, this body was really the only group that was focused on making workforce housing a priority. And I think the investment that we've made in the housing needs assessment, I think the investment that we made in creating the strategic plan, I think all of those were some foundational steps to get us to this point where we are today. So again, I don't want it to be lost that you all did a lot of groundwork, or allowed us to do a lot of groundwork in getting us to this point. That's a really big deal. You saw Lawrence flash up the budget slide there. That money has already been appropriated and allocated, so that doesn't require council action. But we did want to bring this to you today just to give you an update on where we are. And there's really two pieces to the city of Myrtle Beach's workforce housing strategy, if you will. Number one is the Community Land Trust, and that's more of an external effort that we will now be participating in. The second one is, you all are aware, we have our own workforce housing fund. We began setting money aside for that in 2019, I believe, and we've accumulated a pot that we will be able to use in this effort, but we will also be able to focus specifically on city efforts and city priorities. So we will have sort of really two different paths. One will be more of a regional effort, and then one we will be able to allow for specific city projects and city priorities. You've heard a couple of reports over the last couple of years from an organization called Community Works. Community Works will be our partner, helping us navigate and underwrite internal projects that we want to pursue. And we're waiting on a revised contract back from Community Works, and that'll be our next step. Megan put the slide deck together, so I'm not surprised, but she gets a lot of credit for really bringing the county to the table, getting the private sector to the table. She's done a lot of legwork over the last year at essentially catching the county up to where we are. And so I give her a tremendous amount of credit for that and being able to shepherd this through the process. So again, happy to answer any questions or talk about anything in particular.
I just want to commend Megan and Lawrence, the team that you've brought together to, serve as your first board. Just knowing those people, they are all action-oriented, and I know it will be successful.
Thank you. Sandy Davis also played a major part in that as well with the EDC. I think their inclusion in this, in developing this, was really key and the game changer for us. I'm really confident in it with the crew that we have.
Didn't know it was gonna never happen. I didn't think it was, I'll be honest with you. But Megan, you stuck with it, and Jason, thanks for getting things started in the beginning, and, it's exciting. I remember when we went to, I think it was in Greenville, the first project we looked at. It was neat just to see the different looks at the houses and stuff, and just different groups coming together and living in the same community. And I'm excited. So thank you guys, and 100% got my support, all of our support. So
Mike and I have talked about this several times, and one time he told me that 20-something years ago there was an idea to do this,
yep.
and it just didn't quite make it off the runway. And we talked about where would we be now if we had done this 20 years ago. I mean, there's no better time to start than 20 years ago, but second best time
Now.
right now.
All right, thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Lawrence, good to see you.
Megan said she would stick to 20 minutes, and
And she did.
she did.
She did, yeah.
I think I'm the next item on the agenda also.
Yes, we have the HTC Aspire Hub expansion update.
This This is going to be a really quick one. We've been talking about this one for some time as well. If you will recall, I think Sarah's out there somewhere.
Yeah, she's behind you.
HTC has been our partner in Smart Cities initiatives and downtown in the A&I district, specifically with the HTC Aspire Hub. We've talked to you a couple of times about the expansion of the Aspire Hub. If you remember, HTC last year extended an offer to us of a $500,000 grant to help with our Smart Cities initiative. 100 of that we have set aside specifically for the Smart City initiative in the program. The other $400,000 will go into the expansion of the Aspire Hub, along with some funding that we were able to acquire from the state. With that funding now appropriated, we are ready to go out to bid on the Aspire Hub. I think you see the plan there for what the expanded portion of the Aspire Hub will look like. You heard in Devin's presentation last week with the addition of TransPerfect on 9th Avenue. TransPerfect started off in the Aspire Hub at a floating desk and then moved to a private desk and then eventually had to leave the space just to come back to 9th Avenue. The expansion will allow those types of operations to stay in the Aspire Hub a little bit longer. If you see from the configuration there, you see all of the darker shaded blocks there are more private offices. That's the one thing that is in a lot of demand. You know, we had this conversation with folks around the Aspire Hub since the beginning. Like that's the Aspire Hub as it is today was almost a proof of concept, right? I mean, we set out to build the Aspire Hub thinking that there was a demand for co-working space and sort of a center for that tech community. As they got into that space, realized that we need a little bit more of this, we need a little bit less of this, and that the expansion will allow for the different types of spaces in the quantities that they believe will generate really that momentum to keep this effort going. The project, what you see there, so you got the dark offices there are private offices. The lighter gray area is more of a common space. That front section there will be, the very front section will be a large community room and conference room with some phone booths that are broken out. And again, all of this is in response to sort of filling in the gaps from what the current configuration of the Aspire Hub is and what it needs to be to sort of take the next step. The project is out to bid now. We've got a mandatory pre-bid meeting on Thursday, so we'll get an idea from the contractors how much interest we have in the project. And then those bids are due by February the 20th. So we'll open bids on the 20th and we'll be ready to move ahead. So here in March, we will be ready to start really making some progress in that space and be excited about the next iteration of the Aspire Hub. Again, thanks to HTC for their participation, and we've had a lot of folks sort of contributing to make sure we get the configuration right. Happy to answer any questions or talk through anything in more detail, but again, just wanted to give you a quick update on where we are with that.
Brian, is this building an historical building that we're going to have to be held to the same SHPO regulations that we were with the
This one's
Aspire
not
Hub?
historic.
Okay.
I think the original Aspire Hub is, which you see that front space. There will be some reorganization of the existing space to better utilize that front lobby in the current Aspire Hub. But that one is historic, and we're sort of confined and constrained on what we can do in the front of that one. That's not the case here.
Okay, good.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? That was easy.
It's easy. All right, I like easy.
Okay. A&I infrastructure update and road closures.
I'll turn this one over to Chris. Obviously, we've seen some construction. Chris is going to talk through what you can expect to see over the next year. So with that, I will turn it over to Chris.
Good morning, council. Good morning,
Good
Mayor.
morning.
Just wanted to take a few minutes and just let you know where we've come from. We're about 15 months into the project. These are the numbers as of the end of January. We have basically the south side of 501 or Main Street completed. We are currently out there paving the roads now and trying to get them reopened. All of the utilities have been replaced and upgraded. About 47% complete with all the sewer on the project, 15% complete with all the water. ECT, which is electric, cable, and telephone, those are all your underground utilities, your conduits, 42%. 38% of the stormwater is in the ground, some of our stormwater ponds. Streetscape, which is basically your general conditions and mobilization for the contractor. We don't really have anything on the ground as far as landscaping or our decorative pavers yet. We're 36% complete with the entire project, and we've been on the job for 508 days, about 32%. Some of the milestones are the Balsam Avenue ponds are in, the 8th Avenue North Pond is in, the new sanitary sewer pump station is in at 6th and Maple. And we've crossed over 501 in the last 2 weeks. There are 7 different utilities that have to be brought across when we open up the ground. There's 7 separate utilities that come with us: water, sewer, storm drainage, all of our conduits for electric, cable, and telephone, and the sewer force main. This is just a couple of recent pictures of when we crossed 501. We moved those 7 utilities and crossed 501 and had the road open in about 8 days. The weather hit us on the very last day with the paving of 501. That delayed it by 1 day, but we did everything basically in a week. So kudos to C.L. Benton, the contractor. They've been excellent so far working on this project. This is just an overview of the entire project, just to give you a scale. We go from 6th Avenue on the left side, 6th Avenue and Oak, to Mr. Joe White Avenue on the right side. Everything from Business 17 back to Alder Lumber Street. A little closer up, this is the area that I want to discuss. North side of Main Street, north side of 501 is where we're starting to impact our businesses, our residential travelers, our resident travelers. We are going to start impacting their routes and some of the ways they get around downtown. I put together a little color-coded map to kind of show you the phasing. Currently, we're in the yellow section. That's where we are right now. We'll be coming up Oak Street from 501 to about 8th Avenue with all of our utilities, manholes, water, storm drainage. We're going to catch a small little area of the parking lot in front of the Jamaican restaurant, if you know where that is, part of 8th Avenue. We're going to rebuild Oak Street, get Oak Street open, then we're going to go to the red section, which is 8th Avenue and Broadway. We have some storm drainage that has to go down 8th Avenue towards Lumber Street and catch the new stormwater pond that we just installed. And while we're there, we're going to go ahead and upgrade Broadway. Each section will be rebuilt and will be back open to the traveling public before the next section is closed. All the businesses in these areas will have access, maybe not by vehicle or parking in front of the store, but all the businesses will have access and we will not interfere with their daily sales, if you will. But I just wanted to make it known that we are going to start moving in to the downtown area. We've been talking about it for about 3 years now, and it's starting to become a reality. I met with Brian last week and thought it would be best to just kind of bring you into the loop and start getting it out to the public. This is in place right now. As soon as we finish the red, we'll go on to the green section. I think that's going to have the biggest impact, which is 9th Avenue between Kings Highway and Oak Street, and the little section of Broadway behind the Methodist Church. And then we'll go into the blue section, which is the remainder of Oak Street in front of City Services, the train depot, all the way down to Joe White Avenue. Each one of these closures will have a detour. When Oak Street is closed in the yellow section, we'll be utilizing Broadway and 8th Avenue to come through that corridor. When we close the red section, which is Broadway, we'll utilize Oak Street to come through that corridor. So the traveling public will always have a route through the downtown area. We will have to close these sections completely because we're gonna have to dig up the entire roadway. The sidewalks will be in place, and then everything will be put back as soon as possible. The bottom left just gives you an approximate time frame of what I'm thinking the time of the road closure will take. Biggest part will be the blue section. That's going to take the longest. The entire roadway has to be brought up in elevation. That one's going to be closed for a while. The last slide is just to bring back and jog your memory. When we do close Oak Street, we're going to see those little roundabouts or cul-de-sacs on the end of 9th Avenue and on the end of Oak Street. That's going to allow all the businesses to remain open and the traveling public to get downtown, but not allow you down Oak Street while we rebuild Oak Street. So we're moving forward. It's definitely progressing on schedule. We haven't had any hiccups, and just wanted to just brief you on that. Are there any questions?
I have a lot of questions, but I'll open it up to council first.
I was wondering, like, with the red section, like, how long will Broadway be closed?
I've got on there from approximately March to June.
Okay.
That will be kind of springtime, if you will. There's not a lot of work in that area, but there's enough where we're going to have to close it entirely. If we can keep one lane open or keep some type of movement in that area, we will.
That's Broadway from 501 to 8.
Correct. In front of the bike shop, the old bike shop.
The stoplight at 501 and Oak Street.
501 and Oak, right.
501 and Oak,
Correct.
which you just paved over,
Correct.
is running on a regular cycle right now, but there's no way to turn left or right.
That I'll have to
connected?
look, there were traffic loops in that intersection that the DOT had installed. That is something that needs to be put back in. I don't know the time frame on that, but that light should be corrected in the next 30 days.
Would it be reasonable to just make it green the whole time if nobody's?
I'd have to check with DOT. It's a possibility.
But I guess people still need to walk across, probably.
Yeah, we still need to get the pedestrians across, but it's definitely something we can look at.
It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't hold you up very long.
It's something we could look into.
Any other questions? All right, you ready? Don't go. Great presentation, and we all have heard the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. To me, a picture is worth $75 million, which is what we are asking the state for that last year. So Fox and I have been talking about what presentation are we going to give to our leaders in Columbia. And I think this shows a really great update on where we are and where we still need to be for this year's request, which we'll talk about later. How are we communicating with the residents and the businesses in this area about these closures? How to get people to them where they can park, et cetera?
PIO has been fantastic in getting the word out on Facebook and Instagram, a couple of the LinkedIn sites. The businesses, we actually go to door and meet with the business owner. We have face-to-face communications with them at all times. We exchange phone numbers, and we've had real good response from some of the businesses down on the other side of Oak Street. They call us, they have a problem, we fix it right away. Everybody's been great to work with, the businesses, everybody's understanding. They know that if I give them a couple weeks, I move out of their way and everything goes back. So we do door-to-door knocks and make sure everybody's aware of it. The general public, people that live outside of Myrtle Beach, it's all through social media and news articles.
We just talk often about how inexpensive and how effective the use of the Pelican tags are. Mm-hmm. And especially for the residents in this area. Not everyone is on our social media or on our website. Mm-hmm.
Definitely can do
So
that.
just something to consider. And then the cul-de-sacs. And I'm sure in working with DOT and the engineers, can a fire truck or an ambulance make that radius?
Yes, ma'am. They've been designed big enough for those trucks to turn around, garbage trucks as well.
And just lastly, I was talking with Brian yesterday. Last Friday, I had a walking meeting around the A&I district. And if you haven't done that in a while, I encourage you to, because I started at Nance Plaza, went down Main, went down Ninth, across the street on Oak, where you see all the fencing and what is happening. And when you look back at what that area looked like 7 years ago, and you think about how long it looked that way, we're talking decades that it looked the way it did. And to see the life that is sprouting up in those areas is very, very exciting. And it was clean. People, just the energy among the business owners there is special, the relationships that they have. So it really is worth your time to take that walk. Devin makes fun of me whenever we do a presentation because I tell people that this isn't the pretty work, the sexy work, but to have a pretty baby, you have to go through a lot of pain. So this is the pain before the baby comes. I did that just for you, Devin. All right, thank you.
And I was actually going to make that point. As Chris pointed out, we are essentially a third of the way through the project. We've seen bits and pieces of the project around the perimeter, but this next 2/3 is going to be the stuff, right? I mean, it's going to be the activity that we've been preparing people for. And I know we've said this a lot, that we should just change the city logo to Pardon Our Progress. Well, the next 12 months to 18 months is going to feel like that, especially around this corridor. Another thing Chris didn't point out, Chris met with a lot of our city department heads because candidly, our city employees are going to be extraordinarily impacted through this next phase, and being able to make sure that we can continue to get our people in and out to deliver services, to do the inspections, to do all of the stuff that we need to do out of City Hall, out of city services, the fire annex. I mean, so we're trying to coordinate that activity too. So it's we're trying to work through the progress. MBDA has also been a big help on communicating to the business owners. I know Chris and Jason talk on a regular basis, so that's a big part of this next process as well.
In talking to a business owner in the last week, they said they had felt ignored for decades. And they finally feel like, and they've seen people talking about supporting the downtown area and just having water, sewer, all these things that they feel like they can't believe it's really happening.
I understand
They're
that.
excited.
It's interesting. It's enjoyable for me to have those conversations of honestly similar to what Councilman Chestnut said earlier. We've been talking about doing, in that instance, workforce housing for 20 years, but we've also been talking about giving the downtown a real, genuine facelift for a long time as well, and it's coming to be. And again, I give you all the credit for having the vision, appropriating the funding, because this is not easy. It's not cheap, but I think for the long-term residents that are here, they take a lot of pride in this center portion of the city. We're very happy to see the progress that's been made. So, just happy to answer any questions before we move on.
I'll just say, when Chris got up and the first slide showed up, my heart started racing again. And so I keep saying I'm excited. And just as the mayor said, this is the stuff that's not so pretty, but it's going to help us get to that first picture. So I mean, we just, Debbie said, you're going to have some people who not going to see the big picture, but at the same time, we keep spreading the word and saying, hey, guys, it's gonna happen, and just bear with us. And, Brian, you just said, I mean, the city staff is gonna be just as impacted as the public, because you guys gotta go to work over there, and, how you gonna get there? You're gonna doing some walking, and so, it's exciting. I'm ready to help spread the word.
Do it. We will transition to the next item. I think Devin's up next. But just to sort of set the stage for Devin, talking about the infrastructure work, and we're talking about everything that has to happen on the public sector side to get this thing moving. The time has come where we can shifting gears and really preparing the private sector to come in and do the part that they need to do for this. So with that, I'll turn it over to Devin.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So yeah, pick up where Chris and Brian left off. This is the current state of our infrastructure. Today I'm here to talk specifically about the intersection on Oak Street and 9th Avenue. So post realignment, and this is not a new conversation, we all know that when these roads are realigned, we'll reclaim some of that footprint for infill development. The gray buildings that you see are from the vision book and placed as placeholders on corners where we will be reclaiming some of that footprint. So based on the timeline that Chris just shared, the section of Oak Street and 9th Avenue will be completed around July of 26. So that gives us about a year and a half to start planning on what we want to see as far as infill on those corner parcels. Specifically these two that I have highlighted in red right here. So background is existing infrastructure overlaid with the realignment. I want to touch on the key parcels that would be involved in this redevelopment project. Let's start with E2. Currently, E2 does not exist. This is a portion of Oak Street. Once the realignment takes place, we'll be reclaiming about 0.13 acres from this footprint. Right across the street from 9th Avenue, parcel that is labeled E3. So this parcel currently exists. It's the grass triangle parcel. If you're looking at Herald Office Supply immediately to the left, it's about a quarter of an acre as it stands. Once the road is realigned, that goes to 0.4 acres. Excuse me. And then the last parcel to talk about is parcel labeled E4. This is currently the Mike Kelly Law Group parcel. So with or without this particular parcel, we still have enough of a footprint to create a very impactful redevelopment project. Not to the extent as if we did have this in play. So I've had some initial conversations with Mike and Laura Kelly. They actually are moving here on a more permanent basis, closed and sold their branch on Bull Street in downtown Columbia. But, you know, they talked a lot about the redevelopment and revitalization of Bull Street in that area and are very excited about what we're proposing downtown with the revitalization. They're open to the option of the city acquiring that parcel, maybe building them into a new development as a tenant. Assuming that that is the case, as far as going vertical, what we're proposing is a mixed-use, multi-family development. Let's go by parcel A and parcel B. Parcel A is on the left side of this map, parcel B on the right. So ground floor activation, ground floor commercial activation, this would roughly give us around 15,000 square feet of new commercial on the ground floor. Across the street on parcel B, roughly 12,000 square feet of new commercial. Okay, so let's talk about the upper floors. Before I dig too deep into that, our zoning ordinance, as far as new development in the art district, requires no less than 2 stories, no more than 80 feet. So that breaks down to about 6 stories. The problem is when you're talking about commercial ground floor and 6 stories of residential above is the construction gets very expensive. Another thing of note is really the city's appetite to see development scaled down towards the ocean. We know that across the street, we've got some big plans for the community hub and the community park. We believe that a podium plus 4 style build is probably the most cost effective. Obviously, developers have to make their money. We're gonna be open to options, but at face value, it looks like a podium plus 4 build would be best case scenario. So when we're looking at parcel A, if we go this route, that would break down to roughly 22,000 square feet per floor, which is roughly 18 units depending on the mix. Podium plus 4, that would be 72 total units above commercial ground floor. Across the street on the parcel B, same concept, just a little bit of a smaller footprint, 13,000 square foot of floor, give or take 11 units, which totals out to 44 units. So after the realignment, really what this development project will do is take ownership of the realigned intersection of Oak Street and 9th Avenue. It'll define the corners. It'll give a viewprint down to the ocean. It also allows us to prove the market for a somewhat higher density downtown residential component. And really is another step in the right direction towards the overarching development of the Arts and Innovation District. So that's our plan for this corner parcel. Happy to take any questions that you may have.
On parcel A, U1, are you talking about multiple different buildings, or are you talking about a hole in the building to drive through?
So a hole in the building to drive through on the ground floor. Yeah. So the ground floor would be separate, almost like a little entrance with solid upper floors across.
Okay.
Where's all the parking for the?
Yeah, so we have, if you see on the top right corner, there are some plans for a parking lot. Parking has come up multiple times. It'll continue to come up. You have the A&I district parking. You've got the church putting in roughly 70 parking places across the street as well. And then you have the auxiliary parking around the annex and town hall.
So that would be approximately, how many spaces?
I think
Approximately.
250 to 300 quarter mile.
All right.
I love the residential unit, which is the biggest need down there right now to activate the area. Brian, maybe this is a question for you, and not sure if I'm phrasing it properly. A developer can go up to 6 floors, but chooses not to because we might not want them to. Can they take advantage of the air rights if they want to go up 3 floors? How does this work if they have 3 floors of air rights? And maybe explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, to the mayor's point, actually, when you own a piece of property, you own dirt and everything above it. If you choose not to do anything above it, then you can essentially transfer that as an asset to somebody that would like to do something above it. So hypothetically, our building's on 9th Avenue. We haven't done anything on the 2nd floor, but you could. So I mean, candidly, a developer could come in and in that, my eyes are getting bad, but G2, if they wanted to acquire that corner and the air rights over our building, they could essentially extend the 2nd floor all the way over the length of our building if that's what we want to do. I think to answer your question, we've got to get to the next, which is an RFQ to select the development partner that wants to actually come in and make the investment to this, and we can hash through exactly what that looks like. Maybe they want to drive through 2nd floor, or they just want that to be 2 distinct standalone buildings. We don't really know yet. I think the next thing that Devin's working on is the RFQ to actually select a development partner that sees the vision for this.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, though, it would be at our council's discretion whether we would allow
100%.
that type of project.
That's the beauty in having control of the property. ultimately, you all will decide what the private sector vision is that's going to come to pass on the property.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, Devin, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all that we have on our agenda for today. We do have some executive session items. Before we go into executive session, I'd like to give two really quick updates on some budget request issues. One is working with Congressman Fry's office. I was told by Al Simpson, who is our DC lobbyist, that there are a lot of funds in DC right now for public safety. And so he is going to be sending us an outline of what some of the projects may be that would qualify for those funds, and we will be applying some of those funds. Our state budget request, we will be putting that in within the next week or two. Last year, we did ask for $7 million for infrastructure in the A&I district. We received 10. Going back and asking for the remaining 65 million, knowing that we will not get that all in 1 year. We've already been told that year request. So we will just going back, if we, whatever this year, we'll subtract it. We'll go back next year asking for the remainder. But just wanted to keep everybody updated on where we are with state and federal budget requests. And now we'll go into executive session items we have this morning. First is to discuss negotiations concerning contractual arrangements involving the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. We will invite Ryan Moore and Kristen Call to join us. We'll do first thing. Second is to receive legal advice concerning settlement of pending litigation with Airbnb. And third, to receive legal advice concerning North Myrtle Beach. We will invite Simons, Will Bryan, Brian Tucker, Josh Bruger, Michelle Schumpert, Marla Bell, Patrick Lloyd, and Amy Newshafer into executive session. As a reminder, we do not vote in executive session. Now, please have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Chestnut, second from Dr. Connor. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. And you want to meet here or go to the side room?
Here's fine.
We will stay in here, so we will ask the media to please remove any microphones from the podium. And if your name was not on the list to be in executive session, we would ask if you would please excuse us. Okay, is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Motion made
Yeah, I know.
from Dr. Connor, second from Mr. Chestnut. Any discussion from council?
Nope.
Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. See everybody Tuesday for our meeting.
Sports race.